Since its premiere in 1996, the Mission Impossible movie franchise starring Tom Cruise has had a rather strange creative journey. While the first three Mission Impossible movies certainly vary in quality, beginning with the fourth movie, Ghost Protocol, the franchise really found its footing, gradually becoming a formidable competitor to the James Bond franchise, especially during the later Daniel Craig years when 007 became a grumpy, miserable, emasculated fart. And very notable is 2017's Mission Impossible Fallout, considered by many to be perhaps the best Mission Impossible movie to date. But between production issues caused by the couve and perhaps a bit of franchise fatigue, it's fair to say that 2023's Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, the follow-up installment to Fallout, didn't quite reach the level of its predecessor, and due to its sizable budget, it was ultimately deemed as something of a box office disappointment. Personally though, I actually like Dead Reckoning. I recognize that it's not a flawless movie, but I thought that there were enough cool action scenes, fun banter, and set pieces to still keep me interested, even if some of its story elements weren't spectacular. But given what a difficult production Dead Reckoning was, I could still really appreciate what Tom Cruise had accomplished as producer and star, as well as his elaborate stunt work. The thing is that I had really hoped that Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning, which was initially called Dead Reckoning Part 2, would tie up all the loose ends of this story. And since there's been chatter that this may be Tom Cruise's final Mission Impossible movie, I had also anticipated that this would be a proper send-off for his character Ethan Hunt, giving us a really big action-packed finale. Now, in case you don't know, these type of action spy movies are really in my wheelhouse, and when I saw the trailers and the different interviews leading up to the movie's release, I was rather excited, and I was genuinely rooting for both Tom Cruise and this movie to succeed. And of course, I was right there on opening day to see it at the first opportunity that I had, and while I'd love to tell you that this movie is as great as I thought it would be, the truth is, Mission Impossible 8 is something of a disappointment and a letdown considering the type of budget, production, cast, and crew that this movie had to work with. Now in this video, I'm going to go over the general plot of the movie without completely spoiling it, and then share my thoughts with you on it, and if you enjoy getting honest reviews from an independent reviewer like myself, please make sure to like and subscribe as it would really help my channel. Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning starts off picking up sometime after the events of the previous movie. Gabriel, the bad guy villain, is still at large, Tom Cruise has the key that controls an AI algorithm called the Entity, and right out the gate, that's already something of an issue. Because honestly, I was never really thrilled about the whole AI storyline in Dead Reckoning to begin with. While AI is certainly a topical issue that could be explored, I think relying on it too much story-wise in an action movie creates too many storytelling issues that aren't always resolved in a satisfying way. For example, I was under the impression that since Ethan Hunt was now in the possession of the top-secret AI key, we didn't have to worry about that threat anymore. And if I were to write this screenplay, I would have taken the franchise back to basics with a more gritty and action-packed Gabriel revenge story where he's trying to personally take out Ethan and his team after they foiled his plan in the previous movie, and then they all go out on one final mission to neutralize this dangerous threat. Instead, Final Reckoning seems to quadruple down on the whole AI algorithm concept, and that's really where the movie suffers, with too many convoluted plot devices and strange contrivances that at times barely make any logical sense. Much like in the movie War Games, the AI has taken control of the entire world's defense system, and if Ethan doesn't stop it, it could potentially trigger a nuclear war. Now to be fair, even if I didn't prefer this creative direction, there was still a way to make it work, but where this movie really misses its mark is how little action we see throughout it, how many pointless conversations we get that seem to lead nowhere, and how clinical it feels at times, jumping from location to location, barely moving the actual story forward. The first hour of this movie feels like an ongoing exposition dump and callback to previous installments, as if Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie didn't think people would know or remember past movies, especially the events of the previous installment. But to me, that only highlights the bigger issue here. These type of movies work best when they're self-contained for the most part. Is it nice to give a tip of the hat here and there to past missions? Sure, but I would do that sparingly in a way that doesn't clutter the movie. And the movie's second hour doesn't really fare much better. Instead of an action-packed espionage thriller, everything feels very slow, and perhaps for the first time ever, I found myself rather bored in a Mission Impossible movie. And the third act, which should have been a very satisfying conclusion to both the movie and maybe even the franchise, ends up feeling random and disjointed. If I had to mention a few bright spots in this movie, it's that Tom Cruise is still good in this role, even in his 60s. You can tell he's still in great shape, and yes, there were a few action scenes that he obviously worked very hard on, but unfortunately, in a 3-hour movie, you need more than that to keep the audience's attention. In the past, part of the charm of these movies was also the camaraderie and humorous interaction Ethan Hunt had with his team, and unfortunately, that type of interaction is mostly non-existent this time around. Haley Atwell and Simon Pegg are kept separated from Tom Cruise for much of their scenes, and it's not to the movie's benefit at all. I like Pom Clementief's femme fatale character, but she comes off as very one-dimensional at times. Luther is pretty much wasted here too, which is such a shame because this will likely be the last time we see Ving Rhames in this role as well. It's also worth mentioning that some of the editing is very odd, jumping back and forth through time and even inexplicably skipping over big climactic moments in this movie for no apparent reason. At the end of the day, I would say that this is a rare fumble for Tom Cruise, who's usually on top of his game in movies like this, and that's a real shame for me because man, was I looking forward to seeing this movie, and it ended up being smaller than the sum of its parts. It may not be the worst movie I've ever seen overall, but it is one of my least favorite Mission Impossible movies to date, and for people that aren't familiar with my scoring system, for me, anything below a 60 is considered a failure, and although I would have liked to have given this movie a higher score, I don't think I can give it more than a 65 out of 100, but on the bright side, if you enjoy my honest takes and my honest reviews, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to my channel. It would only take you a second, and it would really mean the world to me, as I work very hard on my videos. Thanks for watching, my friends. Thank you, and good day.
I am such an awesome guy. I make so many videos. Brum.